the party.
The Beavers rolled over Idaho State in the 2016 opener of Research Stadium. Victor Bolden dazzled with the longest run since Terry Baker, while Treston Decoud shined, garnering some honors along the way. We'll break it all down and preview this week's visit from Boise State with Coach Gary Anderson. Beavers Inside the Huddle starts now.
Good rep. Everybody be a playmaker today. Let's go play, y'all. Here we go.
Throws toward the back of the end zone. Touchdown, Beavers!
And welcome in as Research Stadium. This beautiful site was a friendly place to the Beavers last weekend, and the Beavers look to make it even more friendly this week as Boise State comes to town. Welcome in along with Steve Priest, former Beavs quarterback. I'm Dusty Hara, and this is Inside the Huddle. How about that win? 37-7 over Idaho State. A great way to open up the Research for the first time this year.
Well, hey, after 10 losses, it's a wonderful day for the Beavs. They needed that. They needed that kind of win, and they got it on defense. I mean, really, the defense was the winner there. They did the things that Coach Anderson told us last week. He said, you got to have 30 sacks and 30 turnovers a season to be a real good defense. The Beavers get 5 and 4 respectively this game, so great way to start defensively.
And that is, I mean, and you look at the way that game happened. Total yards may not be what Oregon State wants to see, but when they started driving, plays like this one happened. Treston Decoud on this one, the 75-yard, or not that one, but the Decoud pick that went 75 yards for a touchdown. I mean, it's okay if you allow yards, but it's creating turnovers, creating extra opportunities for your offense.
Well, they were good for 24 points out of the 37. So, yes, turnovers are many times more important than any other facet of the football game.
And you mentioned also those 30 sacks that Coach Anderson has talked about several times over the last couple of years, and they were getting to the quarterback. We talked about over the last couple of weeks how, you know, getting there is one thing, bringing that quarterback down is a completely other topic, and the Beavers defensive line did a great job of getting to their spots and getting that quarterback down.
Particularly after the first quarter. You remember that darn first quarter? They kept throwing the skinny post and the slant. They were just getting one. It looked like playing Washington State. Just did a good job. And then later on, they changed up. Coach Clune switched up, played a little bit tighter defense, quicker, got his rush quicker. You see these great shots of the Beavs, and they took advantage of the pressure from the outside, made sack after sack in the second half, and really turned the game around.
If we can look at this defense and we see performances where, like that, I mean, that is a quick-hitting offense, and you're able to get that push up through the interior of the offensive line. That's something we didn't see last year. No. We haven't seen the last couple of years from this Oregon State offense, no matter who the opponent is.
Well, there's so many variations in what he's doing on defense, so many fronts. You see, these are all three-man lines, but it looks like a 3-4 sometimes. It looks like a 4-3 sometimes. Sometimes I'd say there's 7 guys on the line when they've got all their linebackers standing up. Sometimes they got 2 defensive linemen in. Sometimes they got 4. It's really an amazing thing. It caused a lot of problems for that offensive quarterback and the offensive system to figure out what the heck's going to go on.
And as a defensive back, the long NFL career that you had, when you're getting pressure on the quarterback, makes it a lot easier for you guys in the secondary to get interceptions. Huh?
You become really good when you got pressure on the quarterback.
Before you were a defensive back, you were a quarterback at Oregon State, and that leads us to our damn good moment brought to you by Flat Tail Brewing, where the quarterback himself, Daryl Garrettson, man, he was special, especially on this run right here, which we're going to take a closer look at. Scrambling, running on design runs, and getting in the end zone for a touchdown, as we saw right there, that you decided is going to be our moment that we break down on the Mondo pad.
This is the read option, Dusty, but it's a different kind of read option, which I like. Oregon State's moving around. This is the running back. That's the guy that usually would be involved with the mesh in the read option. This is Seth Collins. He's the wide receiver. He came from in here. Now, the read option, forget the blocking for a second. That's between this guy, he's reading this guy on the end of the line of scrimmage. He's got him in sight right across here. As the play starts, if this particular linebacker in this case takes Collins, it's Garrettson's ball to take into the end zone. If he doesn't, if he looks like he's going to stand back and watch, then we've got Seth Collins on the outside and big play. Right here, it's just solid all the way along blocking. Good block here, downfield. And it's all sealed off. Should look pretty darn cool when we see it.
And that one guy that you've been pointing out, that's your guard.
That is the right guard. He is coming across.
It's your guard getting around the corner.
Just excellent job all the way, blocking all the way down, and that's what Oregon State is capable of doing with this read option. They've got various ways to run it. We saw it later in the game, 92 yards out of Victor Bolden.
You know how much of a threat having Darrell Garrettson, having the ability to run like that, and you also have to respect his arm, so your safeties aren't creeping up like we saw so many times last year. What kind of threat does he give this offense that he actually has the legs and the arm to keep you honest?
Well, I think he was the second leading rusher last week, and unfortunately 4 of the 6 carries he had were forced carries out of the pressure situation. But if you got a quarterback like that, it just changes everything. It puts so much pressure on the defense. I don't believe Oregon State's offense has shown what they can do anywhere near it yet, and I think Garrettson has that to come.
And one thing that we also saw is you saw Seth Collins on that play being the fly guy. Victor Bolden has a 92-yard touchdown run. You can give a lot of balanced looks with your formation and not give away which guy's going to be moving which direction. What kind of asset is that to have both Collins and Bolden being those guys on the outside?
You know, you've always got weaknesses in defense, and you move those weaknesses around so they don't have to cover the one guy who's really good at the fly sweep, or they don't have to match speed for speed there. They can't do that, as you said, with Oregon State. With these 2 guys on the outside that are changing off, coming in motion, it's a tough offense to defense.
Well, coming up, we're going to talk about Victor Bolden's big touchdown run. A bit of a historic run for Victor Bolden. But coming up next, we are joined by the coach himself, Gary Anderson. He's smiling after a 37-7 win over Idaho State. Now he's got Boise State. We'll get to it. Beavers Inside the Huddle rolls on.
Poor starting field position here, but here is Bolden getting an opportunity. Gets around the edge. Villiman had the block. Bolden racing down the sideline. He's got Bengals in pursuit. He has 1 man to beat. He's going to beat him to the end zone. Touchdown, Oregon State. 92 yards.
Right there, the longest run for an Oregon State Beaver since Terry Baker made a 98-yard scamper for Oregon State. Victor Bolden finding pay dirt, and what a day it was for Victor Bolden and the Oregon State Beavers. So to discuss the win over Idaho State, we welcome in Coach Gary Anderson down from Corvallis. Coach, thanks for taking a few minutes for us today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys? You all right?
Very good, Coach. Victor Bolden. He's had some nicks and so forth, but he was back last week. We saw the speed, saw a great catch out of him. Talk about what he means to your team and also from a leadership standpoint.
Well, first of all, from a leadership standpoint, Victor is he's an ambassador of our football program. He is who you want to coach as far as the way he carries himself on the field, off the field. He never stops. He works extremely hard at everything that he's doing, and it rubs off on his teammates, it rubs off on his position group, and most importantly, it rubs off on the youth. And he's been through some struggles. You know, to sit back and say at this point in his college football career, this is exactly where he thought his teams would be, and the successes as far as wins and losses, he's had what he wanted when he came out of high school. It hasn't gone that way for him, but he is never a kid that has doubted any situation. He's tremendously respectful, and that's very contagious for a young group of kids on this football team, and that's why he's a captain. Simple and easy. Next on the football field, he's a big play guy, and he'll have to be for this offense to be able to be successful. We have some weapons on that offensive side of the football that need to get the ball in their hands, and when they do get the opportunity to put the ball in their hands or get the ball in their hands, they need to do special things with it. Victor showed his ability in the first game to do that. He showed his ability in the second game to do that, and I'm looking forward to see him continue moving forward. So, great kid to coach. You know, I'm proud and happy to just say I had an opportunity to coach Victor for a couple years.
You know, Victor Bolden on the offensive side of the ball really opened up a lot of scoring opportunities for your offense. But the defensive side of the ball, not only did they get a touchdown, but we talked about getting to the quarterback. And against Minnesota, you got there, but you weren't getting sacks and finishing sacks. Not only did the defensive line create sacks, they created opportunities for the linebackers, and that pressure that they got on the quarterback opened up those interceptions and those deflections for the defensive backs. Talk about your defensive line's impact on the football game and how they really turned a big corner after that Minnesota game.
Well, you know, they overcame coaching, which is a positive thing. They dealt with that very well. But as a group, I was proud of those kids. I expect them to be a cornerstone of the defense, and not just because of the defensive line, but because they should be good football players. And that's what I stress in that room to those kids every single day. It's one thing to have a group of kids and ask them to play hard and when they're not that talented, but this is a young group. It is a talented group, but it is a group that needs to be pushed every single day. And they need to be pushed mentally, they need to be pushed physically, and then they need to have high expectations when they walk themselves out there on the field. They did a good job against Idaho State, which they should have done a good job against Idaho State. The task will continue to get harder. This game will be much like the Minnesota game as far as they're playing against a very experienced offensive line. These kids have had a lot of starts behind them. They have high expectations of themselves as a crew, as an offensive line, and they're a very prideful football team. So you'll have to take it from Boise, and that needs to become our whole mindset, I guess, if you will, as a group of defensive linemen, that we will go take it. We're willing to get in there and get in a fist fight for 4 quarters with you. We made some plays, some tip balls, got some sacks, forced them to start throwing the ball earlier than I think they wanted to consistently. So overall, it was mission accomplished against an opponent that, with no disrespect intended at all, but we should play well in that situation. Now we'll see as we continue to move down the road here how we play against a very experienced, talented, big-time Division I football offensive line in Boise.
As you say, Coach, the Beavs took care of business against Idaho State. Let's put that one in the rearview mirror and take a look at Boise State coming from the Smurf turf to a raucous Reser Stadium, an environment that Boise State's familiar with. The Beavs are looking to capitalize on a big win from. We're rolling on the Beavers Inside the Huddle with Steve Priest and Coach Gary Anderson down in Corvallis. Coach, we were talking about the offensive explosion that you guys had against Idaho State. Now, as we're looking forward in this stair step as the season goes on, what improvements did you see from Minnesota to Idaho State, and what are you guys looking to improve upon on the offensive line play? 246 yards on the ground against Idaho State was nice. What's the next step in the evolution of this offensive line?
Well, I think the next step for the offensive line is really the next step for the offense is consistency. Our ability to not allow the negative plays to happen as much as they have. Put ourselves in a position to consistently succeed on first down. And for us, that's basically staying in a controlled situation. You want to get 4+ yards on first down to be able to leave the game in the play caller's hands without having to get, handcuffed by long yardage and long down distances. I still think we have too many penalties at just opportunistic times, and they've gotten much better. But you want those to be 0, and that's the way you're going to coach it, is to be 0 as we approach and move into the red zone. As we're backed up, those scenarios and those situations need to continue to improve. I think our protection was cleaner in this room as far as the offensive line goes for this last game in their room. The offense helped them some in that area. The offense can help them more, and the offensive line can continue to help themselves. So as we all know, this offensive line unit has been through a lot. A lot's been written about it now, which put it out there kind of in the forefront. But these kids have never used any excuses. They've worked every single day. They continue to battle and fight like crazy. There's not a lot of them by number. And there is no free agency in college football. I can't pick up the phone and call, Tennessee or call University of Arizona and say, hey, I want to take this guy off of waivers here and put him on our team. So our guys are battling. They're working hard to get better. It means a lot to them, and I thought they took a step forward. Again, they'll be challenged greatly with a very, very talented Boise State defense this week that gives you a lot of different looks.
Coach, you mentioned Boise State, a great segue in, and we've already talked a bit, or you have, about Boise State's offensive line. They have a really solid offense at every position. They've got stars in their skill positions on the offensive side. Talk about what you'll face and what you have to do to stop it.
Well-rounded is like you said. They've recruited very well as a program within their system, within their belief. It's been solid and solidified for many, many years. The change in coaches didn't really change. I'm sure there was tweaks, and put their own stamp on it, but who they recruit, how they recruit, why they recruit, I understand that very, very well. I spent a lot of time with Coach Peterson when he was at Boise and I was at Utah State trying to get ourselves flipped around and moved in the right direction there. Tremendous respect for the way they go about things. They do have skill. There's 2 or 3 wide receivers out there that they spread the ball around to a lot. You look at the numbers and the stats, and all the kids are catching balls. They're going to test you down the field 2 or 3 or 4 times a game, more if you allow that to be successful for them on the deep throws. They want to line up and smash you in the mouth. They like it. They pride themselves in it. Those are moments that they love. And this is an offense that has the ability to hurt you with the run, hurt you with the throw, hurt you with the time of possession. And they're also a team that wants to, choke you out, and they love to get physical. So those are a lot of tests that are out there that are ahead for us as far as their offense. But this program has proven to have a national power as far as their offense goes for many, many years. It's a great challenge, and our kids are excited about the opportunity to compete against this offense.
You mentioned that they'll take their shots deep, and Brett Rippon is a guy that can do that. You talk about the quarterback for Boise State. What's the most valuable asset that he brings to their offense? Because, hey, he has a cannon for an arm, but he'll nickel and dime you down the field as well if you let him.
Yeah, he plays within the scheme. And that's a credit to him and his coaches and, quite frankly, the scheme. And he's done a good job with that. As a young quarterback, he stepped in last year, did some great things. He's grown. You can see that just on the 2 games he has on tape this year as far as what he's doing with the ball, how he's taking what's there. He's not trying to force too many things down the field. And everybody wants perfection out of a quarterback, every snap to be a great throw or a great decision, but that's not realistic. This kid makes great decisions almost all the time. He's going to put the ball in a spot where his receivers have an opportunity to make the plays. And then he has playmakers around him. Tremendous back. Guy's physical. He's tough. He's really talented at what he does. They have 4 or 5 tight ends are good players and 3 or 4 wideouts that help him. But I think he manages the game very well. His team believes in him. When they get themselves in a position to need a play on 3rd down, I don't think they're looking at it and saying, oh, woe is us. We're not going to be able to get this 3rd down. I wish we had a good quarterback. I think they just the opposite. They say we've got a really good quarterback. If we do our job, chances of us succeeding are high. And that's how it should be when you have a quality quarterback in the backfield with good playmakers around him that allow you to be able to succeed.
You mentioned these playmakers, Coach, Spearbeck, McNichols, and so forth. But this is a team that Kevin Clune, for instance, is very familiar with, as the rest of your staff is. What does the familiarity do in helping you to get a victory?
Well, I think there's always positives in playing somebody before, and there's positives for the other staff also. They're going to have some good ideas of what Kevin likes to do on defense, and that's very clear. We've got some good ideas of what they want to do on the offensive side of the ball. So I think it's good to go around and have played somebody or have an understanding of what they like to do as a staff. Gives you a little bit of a feeling of the personnel. I have not played them for a number of years, but there's people on this staff that have, so there's that is helpful. So, is it a huge advantage? I'm not going to say that, but it's a little bit of you have a good basis of what they like to do. That's not going to change with Boise because, like I said, I've told you what their philosophy is, and that's exactly what they believe, and it's a good philosophy. It's the way football should be played.
As the full screen pointed out, 8 turnovers caused by Kevin Clune's defense last year against this Boise State team, and coming off a game where turnovers were huge for the Beavs. We're hoping for a few more. Coach, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck this week, and we'll be hopefully talking to you after another Oregon State win, huh?
Absolutely. Appreciate your time, guys. Go Beavs.
Go Beavs.
There he is, Oregon State head football coach Gary Anderson, kind enough to join us every single week. All right, well, we still got one thing to get to. It's our keys to the game, the keys that the fans like, the players like, they all like, Steve. We hit them right on the head last week, huh?
We did. We were good.
In order of the Beavs shows that you can see here on this network CSN, following us tonight is Friday, hashtag Beavers. Saturday morning, wake up with the CSN Game Day crew. Then every Wednesday, 7 o'clock, it's Talkin' Beavers. and then us inside the Huddle on Thursday nights. 4 Beavers-specific shows for you. As now we get to our keys to the game, brought to you by your Northwest Honda dealers. For me, it's win the turnover battle. We saw that graphic. Kevin Clune's defense, 8 turnovers last year against Boise State, 5 last week against Idaho State. You win the turnover battle, you're going to have a great shot at winning a football game. 2, rush for more yards than Boise State. I'm not going to put a number on it, but if we rush for more yards than Boise State, Beavs going to get a win. And number 3, convert over 45% of third downs. That'll put you right about middle of the pack in the country. And you got over 50% against Minnesota, 416 against Idaho State on third down. You got to be great on third down to beat Boise State.
I liked your keys this week. They were actually the best I think we've had in a couple of years. In all facets, I liked them. Mine, I've broken them down offense and defense a little bit. On defense, the Beavers have to give a pass rush, and they have to cover. They work together. We saw it last week. We got 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions, a defensive player of the week in the Pac-12. Everything happened last week because they did it all, 11 men. They make you real good in the secondary. We talked about 200 yards last week. I'm going to talk about it again. And I don't want it to be a 92-yard run in there and a 46 yards worth of scrambles from a quarterback. I'd like to see 200 yards by the running backs and that fly sweep, those kind of things. The Beavs will win if they get 200 yards, actual rushing yards. And protection on offense, the offensive line, the quarterback have to find ways to sit back there and let the roots develop so that these receivers can get deep. Boise State has a weakness. It's in the secondary. It's in pass defense. Beavers have to take advantage of it.
You know, you mentioned that 200 yards. You don't want them on scrambles. You don't want them on a big run. One thing that I really thought was smart and savvy, the way that Ryan Nall has that punishing running style. Only 13 carries. You didn't need him, so you didn't abuse him in that Idaho State game. I think that this is going to be the game where he becomes a workhorse.
Well, I think this is a game that's a show-me game for Oregon State. And I think this is the game they break out and prove to people what they think they are.
More of a true measuring stick for what's to come in Pac-12 play at home as opposed to week 1 in Minnesota?
For sure.
All right. Well, we'll be here to break it all down next Thursday, 8:30, as it is every week with Coach Gary Anderson. For Steve Priest, I'm Dusty Hara. Join us every Thursday night. It's Beavers Inside the Huddle on CSN.